As soon as I see this pop up, and I pause it so it doesn't give me a double soundtrack. There we go. Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It is yet another episode of Epic Sketch Time. This is the Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 edition. My name is Mark Monlux. I'll be your host today. I live in Tacoma, Washington. And today I'm going to be working on some obscure movie monsters.
Hi.
And with me in order of appearance is Bill Morse and Katie C. Bill, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am Bill Morse. I'm a freelance illustrator working in Seattle, Washington, and today I'll be working on my strip, Rhapsodies.
Look for the link in the doobly-doo for Bill's strip and for also a link to my website. And also with us is Katie C.
Hey, this is Katie C. I am an artist and writer from Bonnie Lake, Washington. And today I'm working on a fan art mashup of They Live, James Bond's 007 villain, and, one of my favorites, Pets. You can find me on Instagram at Evil Girlfriend Media.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining me today. So Bill, yesterday you mentioned to me that the other day you mentioned to me that you were going back to Scarecrow Video and picking up double features. What was the double feature that you picked up last week, and what are you thinking about picking up this week?
Oh, last week I was going with films, essentially comical, kind of British crime movie. So I'm not completely sure whether the first one was a British movie, even though it took place in Britain. So the first one was called The 51st State, also known in stateside as Formula 51, starring Samuel Jackson. And then the other one was Guy Ritchie's Rock and Rolla.
I haven't seen either one of those films. How would you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as crime movies?
The Formula 51 was a bit of a disappointment, not quite as bad as a lot of people say it was. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 28, but having said that, it was definitely not a masterpiece, but Samuel Jackson was having a lot of fun with it. And Rock and Rolla, not Guy Ritchie's best, but pretty intense. And a very good cast.
So I watched a couple of films. Oh, so that was last week. What are you going to be watching this week? Have you determined yet?
I haven't decided yet.
Have you decided on a theme?
No, not yet. Let's see, because I'd be tempted to do another sci-fi run, but I kind of did that with my Raquel Welch theme 2 weeks ago.
Have you ever watched Woody Allen's movie Bananas?
Oh, yes.
I was thinking, for some reason, the thought of, people being frozen and then being thawed out into the future, into a situation they were uncomfortable with.
That was Sleeper. In Bananas, he accidentally...
Oh, that's right. That was where he was
South
pretending to
American
be
dictator.
Yes. I don't know. The only reason I get those two confused is because I saw them with my family at a double feature. We decided to go out and watch a Woody Allen double feature. This was in the 70s when both the films came out. back then, rather than doing because they couldn't release things to video, films would often do a re-release 2 years or 5 years after, or even 10 years after it was first released. That's how I saw Lawrence of Arabia. Was in a it was originally released in the 60s, but I saw it when it was re-released in the cinemas in the 70s. You know, this is before VHS tapes and such. You know, you got your straight to the theaters where you could, which was basically straight in the theater. Otherwise, it was extremely edited and cropped for television. And the cropping was the worst. Like the film "It's No Business Like Show Business" was the song of where they were showcasing a lot of different movies, and they would have all four of the stars were singing at the end of it, walking down the street, and in the TV version, all you got were the two middle stars because the stars on either end were cropped out, because that's what they did. They just chopped things down. Oh, there's a time of madness, I say.
Mhm.
I'm looking for my tablet. Here we go. So, Bill, I didn't, did I miss? No. Now I remember. You drew sort of like a killer koala for Monster Monday.
Yes. Actually, it's a drop bear, a predatory cousin of a koala. If you know your Australian tall tales.
For a moment, I thought it was a D&D reference. So,
I'm sure somebody's done stats of them. This is annoying.
so I think that, you know, I keep having a hard time coming up with monsters for Monster Monday. And I think what I'll do in the future is draw yokai.
Okay.
And that way it'll give me at least a theme. And what I did this last time was I did the image at a ratio of 16:9, which is a video reference.
Uh-huh.
Because I thought, oh, I'll just have it so that people can see me drawing this in.
This is annoying.
So let's see, I watched a couple movies. All of them were on Netflix. One was Troll, not Troll Hunter, which I'm sure Katie has seen Troll Hunter. If you haven't seen Troll Hunter, Katie, you should really watch Troll Hunter.
That wasn't the one in that schlocky one in the 80s where the troll sort of starts altering a apartment house.
No, that's Trolls.
Okay.
No, this troll was a Norwegian mini kaiju movie. It's the best way I could come across that. slightly better than Reptilicus, which is also from Norway, but far more horrible.
Ooh, I thought Reptilicus was Danish.
Was it Danish? Oh my God, this shows how bad I am. I'm going to get canceled because I can't tell any of my Northern European countries apart from
Let
each
me
other.
double check just so that I didn't embarrass myself.
Well, considering that I mentioned that Reptilicus was a Norwegian film, I'm the one that's embarrassed myself if I've got that back.
Yep, I'm right. Danish American Giant.
Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed.
61.
But so Troll is on Netflix, and I give it a 6.
Hmm.
An extra point for having a dog with a name in it.
Ah,
Aside from that, it's your typical Norwegian kaiju movie. Has the standard tropes of all those type of films. Now let's see. I also watched sort of like a little bit of a thriller, quasi survivalist, quasi chase film called Blue, which if you ever watched the TV series, what was the TV series about the White House?
there were a few of them. Are you thinking of the one with, let's see, the one that I remember was the one that starred George C. Scott.
George C. Scott was in a series with the White House?
He played the president, a comedy where he played the president, yes.
No, not this. This one is Alan Alda starred briefly on it during the second couple of years.
Oh,
Rob Lowe,
well, West Wing.
West Wing.
It's comic, but I wouldn't, you threw me off because, I mean, yes, it's definitely witty, but I wouldn't call it a comedy.
So the gal who plays CJ Craig, the press, what's that called? The person who acts as a press representative
Press
for the
secretary.
she starred in this movie as sort of like the action hero, and I kind of liked that.
I just checked the sitcom I was thinking of is called Mr. President.
Okay, now I'm going to have to look this up. George C. Scott as a president sounds just interesting. And I'm trying to remember if there's one other movie I watched. Pretty sure there was. I have Gilda sitting here in a CD, and it's been sitting here for a week. I asked my wife if she wanted to watch it. She said, maybe. And I'm thinking I might just have to watch Gilda by myself. I've been watching Loki. I'm on the 3rd episode of that.
What is Gilda?
Gilda is a movie from the 50s. Let's see, where is it? It's around here somewhere. I'm trying to remember if it was a drama or a romance or a screwball. Let's see if I can. Let's see. It's probably a noir film because I've been Gilda, came out in 1946. And it stars Rita Hayworth, Glenn Ford, and George McCready. A gambler discovers an old flame while in Argentina, but she's married to his new boss.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a noir. That's a noir setup if I've ever heard one. So I'll enjoy watching that. I'm checking my I used to keep track of my films on Internet Movie Database, but now I'm keeping track of them on Letterboxd. They just do a better job of it. Let's see. Films that I watched in the last week. I got this wonderful thing called Diary. No wonder I couldn't remember it. Pineapple Express, which was I gave it a 5. Now I like some Seth Rogen movies, and I know that this was one of his early. Well, I'm wondering if this was one of his early ones, but basically a story about a person who what is it called when a person delivers a summon, a server, a process server? That's it.
Yeah.
So his job is a process server, but he's high all the time smoking weed. And so he puts on these outfits to fool people, like he dresses as a construction worker, or he puts on a business jacket and a tie. So he just fits in wherever he goes to serve papers. And he happens to witness a murder. So who does he go to for help? His pot dealer. Who by chance happens to be the murderer? The guy growing the pot, the head crime lord in the area, who's apparently having a gang war with another crime lord, which is how he observed the murder. And suddenly he's wondering who this guy is who's witnessed the murder and is managing to evade him, though poorly, and the corrupt police. And it's a lot of the script is done by improvisation, because they're acting like they're high, and so they're just rambling on like high people do. Which explains why I forgot I'd seen this movie, because it's highly forgettable. Bunch of I had more than enough conversations of people like that in college. So those were the movies that I watched this. And my wife and I are watching. She just couldn't get into Loki. So now we're watching The Mandalorian together, and we're on like the 3rd episode of that.
Oh. Let's see. The one thing that makes me very tempted to get, that I still haven't watched, the one that has me very tempted to get a Disney account is Andor. And one that I've seen a few clips on YouTube. They have a new cartoon, Devil Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which is based on a Marvel comic book that was much better than I thought it would be when I started watching it. The production quality of it is amazing. I mean, yes, it's blatantly a moralistic children's show, and proud of it, but the stuff they're doing with the animation is amazing.
Yeah, we watched a preview of it last night. And it looks adorable. I didn't know much about it. But Tim was showing it to me. Because we had some friends that mentioned it. As far as Loki goes, that show is it's a lot slower paced than you would expect it to be, which is why might be one of the reasons why your wife's having such a hard time getting into it. We
Well,
were
she's
really
really not-
surprised.
Yeah, she's really not into the Marvel universe that much.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, she doesn't even bother keeping the Star Wars film straight. You know, I mean, you know how some people, they absolutely know which Star Wars film they've seen and when they saw it and who they saw them with. She's kind
Yeah.
of, did we see that? But her movie memory is like the fog. It rolls in and it rolls out.
Gotcha.
And you would, I don't know, if my wife ever drops dead, I think I'm going to have to really, well, one, marry someone else who's got money. She didn't have money when I met her, but she's got money now. She's been saving it up. But
Okay.
no, I mean, why should women be the only ones who marry for money? I'm a catch. I'm a wonderful guy.
Since I'm married to a creative and also a nurse, I feel you. I understand.
So, but I think one of the things that would be very nice is if they were a nerd and had all these movies underneath their belt and weren't. My wife is meh. Not that important to her.
Yeah. There are certain I feel like it works out really well that Tim and I both like watching television and we both like reading. We both have a healthy dose of liking, similar things. We don't have to like everything the
Yeah.
same, but it helps if you have some, like my ex-husband, he hated television. Absolutely hated it. Like I wasn't allowed to have the TV on at all. So there's like all these things from like the late, early 2000s to the like 2013. So like 2007 to 2013, there's all these shows I never watched, all these movies, because he was just like so anti-TV. And it was funny because when we separated, I didn't realize how much I really enjoy television, and I shouldn't have to be embarrassed about it. So it's nice being married to someone who, isn't going to freak out and doesn't mind watching television. And if they don't want to watch television, they don't get upset if I want to have a little time to myself and just veg out and watch a show that I'm interested in. It's very peculiar, but yeah, you kind of want someone who has some of the same. I don't think you have to be exactly like the person you're with, but it does make it easier if you could like a couple of things, and that you like doing things together.
Now we do enjoy doing a lot of things together.
Just not geeky stuff.
Well, she'll go with, first of all, she's an introvert, not an extrovert. But she'll come with me to some conventions if I take her out to dinner, and she's gotten used to some of the geek culture and she enjoys it for the most part. And hey, there's a table between her and other people. And sometimes she'll even help me out both days, but most of the time I'm off doing the conventions. I say, hey, you want to help me with this? She says, no, you can handle it. It's when we go to Portland. It's the reason she comes with me to Portland is we usually have dinner with her friends, and there's some really good places to eat in Portland that she doesn't want to miss. We're both foodies. And thank God I got her addicted to anime. The first subscription service that we got onto other than Netflix was Crunchyroll.
Have you watched Chainsaw Man yet?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I absolutely fell in love with the manga. That's this absolutely amazing page composition and whatnot. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how much justice the adaptation did to it. And I'm told it did a lot.
Well, you know, Bill, you can get Crunchyroll for free. You just have to watch it with commercials.
Hmm.
So nothing's preventing you.
Hmm.
And well, I'm glad that you and Tim have. My wife and I, we've got a very similar taste in books, so we'll often share books with each other. She is a voracious reader, though. Like, she set a goal of hers for herself last year of 150 books. She did. I think she read like 165 books.
Good night. Okay, that's awesome.
So she's a tremendous reader. So we usually watch like an hour of television with each other. Maybe it'll be a couple of anime, or maybe it'll be The Mandalorian. It all depends on whether or not we feel like, oh, maybe we'll want to watch an hour and a half. So we might watch 3 animes. It all depends on how early or late dinner is. And then we also like some other shows, but she tends to prefer binge watching shows, one right after the other.
Me
She knows
too.
that I like to scatter them around and watch a little bit of this and watch a little bit of that. But no, I was watching True Blood with her. And then next thing I know, I came back from a convention and I said, okay. And I walked in, she's watching True Blood. I said, you've been watching that without me? She says, yes. And I kind of go, 1 or 2 episodes? No, a season and a half. I went, Jesus, there's no way I can catch up now. I still haven't watched all of True Blood, you know.
Oh,
And years and years ago, we had a terrible fight. And when we were both really angry at each other, I watched something that we wanted to watch together. But I didn't watch it with her. And she
oh
was
boy.
she was really hurt. I didn't watch it with her. And but of course, we made up, and we don't get mad at each other like that anymore. But we also don't watch a lot of stuff together. She's not a horror person, so
Mhm.
I don't inflict it on her. I'll say, I'm just going to go in the other room and watch someone get his head chopped off. She says, enjoy. But occasionally I get a little upset because she'll watch an anime that we started watching together, and then she'll say, hey, you didn't show that much interest in it. And I come back and she's binged through like the season. Like, oh, guess I'll have to catch up on that one if I want to.
Have you
She
seen?
knows that there's certain anime that I'm not particularly fond of, so she purposely looks for anime that kind of creeps me out a little bit, like this what's the boy on boy anime manga called?
Oh.
Yuri. No,
Mao.
no,
It's
Yuri,
5
I think.
o'clock.
Yahweh.
Yahweh, yeah. So some of her Yahweh, she likes Yahweh stuff, and some of that I can watch, and some of I said this isn't hardly any Yahweh, and then I'll watch another one and kind of going, oh my God, that guy should be brought up on crimes. This is too much for me.
Inappropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Too much of oh sensei, that type of thing. Oh my God.
Yeah, some people are we have a friend who she writes Harry Potter fan fiction, and there's some Harry Potter fans, they're very divided on fan fiction that features stuff like that. Like some people are just like hard no, like that's not appropriate.
I've
Like
never
there's
read any of
different
that, but I'm
camps.
very much aware of it. Yes.
Yeah, there's different camps on that. Like some are just like, oh no, that's not appropriate. And where others are like, oh, it's fine, and then it's like, no, it ain't. So it just depends on the person. I'm not much of a fan fiction person myself, so I have no dog in that fight.
I used to write it, and I still get ideas every now and again, but I have enough of my own projects that
That's funny you were talking about writing. Yeah, I don't know how we got on that. Sorry. But what kind of
I
fan
think that,
fiction?
fan fictions, I've never done fan fiction myself, but I've certainly read a lot of it.
back in the day, it used to be mostly Ron the One Half, and generally with doing twists, as it were. Normally these days I can get the worst of it out of my system with a fan art, but every now and again I have notes for one where it's a Game of Thrones Discworld crossover where Ankh Morpork is transported into the Riverlands.
I was thinking about, I have a novel that I wrote. It's like my first thing I've ever written. It's a trunk novel. But it's complete, and
What's a
it's
trunk? What's a trunk novel?
it means you put it in a trunk and you never open that
Oh,
trunk
trunk.
again because it's so bad.
I was going to say, what's it? I didn't want to think about what a Trump novel was. That's something.
No, trunk, like a TRUNK, like
Okay,
a treasure.
okay.
Yeah, junk trunk.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so that is it's a novel that you like hide because it's so bad. But it's like it has some fun bones in it because it's a romance novel that is a billionaire romance. And then it's a Greek billionaire romance. And so it was for a competition. And the funny thing is though, is that after I had written it, and I had worked with it with my sister, it was kind of funny because the island that they're on is called Anagenisi, which I think in Greek means like eternal or something. And so I started thinking about Island of Dr. Moreau, and I hadn't thought about it in a couple of years. And today Tim was looking at some things that are public domain, just because he was like doing typing lessons where someone because he has a specific weird type of keyboard where you have to relearn to type because it's supposed to help your wrist.
Right. Is it the one that's shaped like this with the sides up?
It's broke.
Or is it the one that you can do
split.
everything one-handed? Yeah.
Yes,
the one
it's
that's
split.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was looking at, I was like, man, I don't know why I haven't looked before to see if the Island of Dr. Moreau is in public domain, and it is. And so I'm having this weird, like, it's just gnawing at me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, should I pull this trunk novel out and try to put it into a novel, take this Greek billionaire romance that was originally written for a Harlequin romance contest and mash it up with Island of Dr. Moreau. I'm almost there. Like, it's a nurse who goes to an island to take care of this old Greek billionaire and then falls in love with his son. And I already have like 2 villains, some inciting incidences. And so I just would need to like put my own twist on it in a horror kind of way. Cause, when I first started writing, I didn't really have any interest. I didn't know what I wanted to write. And my sister read a lot of romances. And so she dared me to write a romance novel. And I never was even a romance reader. So I'm thinking about this a lot. But then I'm like, that just might be too weird. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if if horror readers would like it. I don't know. I mean, and then it's like, would it even be appealing to people who read fun romances? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I guess so, yeah.
I don't know. I'm noodling on it while I'm
Well,
trying to finish
I
this short
think
story
that
collection.
the furry community might be after it.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing I've gotten to the taking advantage of things going into to common law was doing. I had this idea for doing an animatic of Alice in Wonderland, and I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of these amateur animatics on YouTube. A lot of people make their own music videos. So I had this idea.
Oh yeah.
I had this idea of doing a animatic for an audiobook. And so I decided Alice in Wonderland, because one, it's public domain, and two, it has an audience. And in the process, I sort of started editing it, translating it into middle-class modern American.
Oh, fine.
And because there's a whole, as you probably guessed, there's a whole lot of concepts that, while Alice in Wonderland does hold up extremely well, it's very, very British. And there's a whole lot of things that you don't, that turns of phrases and whatnot. And on top of that, Alice is very lower upper crust. And a matter of fact, there's a lot of the stuff where you definitely get the feeling that she'll grow up to be a Karen. But the yeah, I mean, most of my worst Game of Thrones fanfic ideas I can generally get out of my system as doing it as one of, because they weren't very in-depth ideas to begin with, using them as my watercolor practice generally gets the worst of them out of my system. So for example, I don't know if you ever saw this Sesame Street did a very good parody of Game of Thrones starring Grover.
I had no idea they had done that.
Oh yeah, look it up on YouTube. It's essentially they throw in so many gallows humor in jokes into it. It's hilarious. And best one is they have Melisandre show up. Essentially, what the game of chairs in the setting is concerned is it's essentially everybody's competing to become the next king or queen by playing the game of chairs, which turns out to be a game of musical chairs. Which is run
I
by,
love it.
and where did I put it? Oh. No. Okay, my fan art portfolio seems to be hiding from me, so I can't show you what I was talking about. But either way, the other one, the Discworld crossover, is one that I actually wrote about 10 pages of. And at the very least, it's a nice, good way to practice your writing if you don't have any ideas of your own, or at least not many.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about fan art, doing a lot of fan art. It's a great way to practice.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think if you enjoy something,
And
like a certain
you can take
media or a certain
comfort.
story, or a certain author or a certain genre, celebrating it however you want to is a great
And you
way to
take,
relax.
yeah, and if you can take comfort in knowing that you're not the worst person out there to do it. I mean, if you want the worst, the absolute worst, here's one that even people who don't know anything about fan art, fanfic may have heard of, just as an example of bad fanfic. Has anybody heard of My Immortal?
No.
My Immortal is a Harry Potter fanfic, and it's notorious for being terrible.
And you read it?
No, heck no. Generally you hear it as the punchline for a joke.
So, Katie, Bill, I'm curious. Have either of you seen the latest Ant-Man movie?
Not yet.
No.
It's definitely on my list. Generally, the friend I see genre stuff with likes to wait a couple of weeks.
Well, it certainly it's been a couple of weeks.
Has it?
Oh, yeah. I saw it when it first came out 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. I was like, when you said a couple of weeks though, I was thinking like a lot longer than that. Man, this hand.
It's giving you problems?
Yeah, I know what the problem is that I just have to line the angles of the bones up. Like, here's the finger pad, mini knuckle, big knuckle down. It's just a matter of getting it shaped up. And then the positioning, like I feel like this finger knuckle is almost, these two are pretty good compared to where the nail beds are, but then these two just kind of go off the rail. I mean, it might not be as bad as I'm thinking it is. And I feel like putting the hair in between the fingers and having him grasp, it kind of distracts away from how weird the hand looks. I got to get the hand, but I don't know. Here, take a look. I think it's the length, the positioning of the fingernails. I mean, the fingernails are aligned. The knuckles are aligned. I don't think they can anatomically both be aligned. It's either the fingernails are aligned or the knuckles are, well, I mean, they kind of.
Well, I think you can give yourself a lot of leeway by thinking, it's an alien. Maybe its anatomy's a little off.
Yeah. Well, and that's with like the whole hand, like every single one of the aliens online, if it shows their hand, none of them have the same hand structure. Their faces are very similar, but the hand structure is completely different. Some have white fingertips, some have white on their hands, some don't. So like, and when I'm thinking hand, the white, I'm like, okay, so they're thinking of ligaments and fascia or fascia, however you want to say it. So I mean, I think as long as it gets the point across, I just don't want the hand to distract from the kitty or his face, because the two big things are the kitty's face, his face, which is
Right.
I'm Mr. Oblivious who has this cat I love, and I'm grasping little kitty because I love her so much. And then my cat looks completely uninterested in me other than to, rule the world. And she's messing up my chair because she's the cat and I'm just a dodo human. Well, actually, I'm a dodo alien posing as a human. So it's like, that's all I want to make sure is the hand is, that's why I'm like, okay, I don't even know that I want any bright like reds on the hand because I don't even want the hand to pop like the face. See how the
Yeah.
face reds are. I'm like, I don't even know that I want those reds on the hand because I just don't. I want people's minds to be like, oh, there's a hand because logically somebody's holding the cat, but I don't really want you to focus on those at all. I might even put more fur on him and just cover up most of the fingers except for a little bit so that your mind is thinking, oh, his hand is grabbing, but we're not focused on how jacked up the hand is. I might camouflage it more, I guess is the way I should say that, because he is a long floofy cat, so it is possible that you would barely see the fingers except for the tops where the hair is popping out.
It's weird. Maybe it's the angle of that you have the painting, but for some reason the Y looks like a cowlick on him to me.
And it might be what about on it?
That's better, yeah.
Yeah, and like it says like love me, meow, play, cats rule,
Oh,
dogs drool, salmon, buy more, buy
cool.
cat treats, hold me, catnip now, play, 3 scritches only, toys, furniture mine. It says like hold me, not now, kick litter, okay. So I just thought,
I sort of like had a
oh my gosh. So I feel like I'm really worried people are either going to totally hate this or someone is going to walk up on it who has a big white floofy cat and is going to be like, how much do you want for that? I have to have it.
a lot of people. Yeah, considering how a lot of cat owners are, I think there'll be several people who would be
Well,
enthusiastic that.
that's like the devil tarot card where that lady freaked out on me at that one con and was like, you're villainizing cats. Cats have enough of a bad reputation. And I was like, most people I know who have cats have a sense of humor. Apparently, you're the first one I met who doesn't.
There's always going to be someone who, like, I don't know if I've told this story. I did a promotional postcard, and on it, I gave an endorsement, and it said, truly a gifted, outstanding genius. And then M dash God. And they said, don't you think it's sacrilegious that you're saying God is saying you're this wonderful genius? I said, no, it's not sacrilegious at all. I said, what's your argument? I said, well, he told me so. No, I was just.
Yeah, that I don't know. I'm just easily, I don't know. I just
And then
try not
I
to.
did this other postcard where it said, the mentally illustrator.
Ooh, good one.
And someone who I knew, who had been a fairly decent friend up to that point, she suffered from mental illness, and she said, that's very disrespectful of people who have mental illness. And I said, I don't think so. I think I'm just making fun of my own mental state. But she took offense.
Yeah, I know. It's really hard. I mean, something
I think that when you get responses like that, it just means you're doing something right.
you have definitely evoked a response in someone, that's for sure. Yeah, I know. I did a story collection I'm going to be having come out this year. It's called Baby Mutant Day. It only comes but once a year. And personally, the story was written when I dreamed this. It was a fever dream. But I was such a fascinating fever dream. I was like, I can't not write about this. And so it's like this future where if you get married and you refuse to have children, the government punishes you. And if I were to tell this story, let me know. They punish you by every year you have to be a part of this thing called Baby Mutant Day. And it's where the government does genetic experiments and they create these babies. And they can't kill them because that would be inhumane. But since you're a married person who chooses not to have children, you have to roll the dice and be chased by these mutant babies. And if the baby catches you, you have to take care of it.
Oh,
And
Lord. This
and
sounds like a perfect B movie. This really does.
yeah, and so this woman is being chased by this baby this year. It's her 6th year that her and her husband have decided not to have children. And so like she's running around town and she meets all these different people who either have been caught by a mutant baby, or, you know, are still running, evading them. And then there's comments from people who are unmarried and, you know, all this stuff. And so I just thought it was really fascinating. And the baby that's running after her has a toilet paper head and a Labrador retriever tail, but then a baby body. And so this little thing is like chasing her all over town. I really actually had this as a dream. It's really messed up. But I really wanted to explore that idea of that pressure that people who get married have to have children, and that there is like they should be punished if they don't have children, or something should happen to them because that's so selfish. And so I kind of played with that, and then it was like I let someone read it and they're like, well, what is this saying? Like, are you trying to say that, you know, there's something wrong with people who have kids who, you know, have birth defects? Are you saying there's something wrong with people who adopt kids who have birth defects? Are you saying, and I'm like, I'm literally saying that people who get married and choose not to have children get punished, and like something should happen to them. And I had a fever dream about a toilet paper head baby chasing me because I didn't want to have kids. But you know, it's like people they're going to find whatever hurts them or whatever they want to see in it. And so I was on the fence on whether I was going to put this story in, because I really wouldn't want to hurt someone who has a child that, you know, it has defects. But I don't think of children who have birth defects as mutants, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not mutants. They're just children who, you know, they're able. What is the word that I want to use that's appropriate? They're able-bodied different. Is that what it is? Or different abled? So they're not mutants is the point. Like they don't have toilet paper heads. They don't have because that's not real. You know, and so it's tough. And I was on the fence on whether I wanted to if I want to put it in this collection or not.
I think your instinct was good, because it's a climate of you know, I think that if you had come out with that story 20 years ago, it would have been fair game.
Yeah.
And I mean,
but I think with the type of cancel culture that we have right now, where anything that could be slightly triggering, and you're right, this does kind of go into an area that could be perceived as bad taste at the best, and or highly offensive at the worst.
another thing I've always had as a pet peeve is people who try to psychoanalyze you through your art.
Yeah, that's postmodern. I mean, we're like in postmodern overload, man.
Well, the best example of it that happened to me was I was doing this sketch. I was doing a sketch challenge where I was doing fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen. So that day I drew an illustration of a story called Godfather Death. If anybody heard of that one.
I don't
Tell us
think
the
so.
story.
Essentially, somebody due to a person the death agrees to be the godfather of this child. And when the boy grows up, the death tells him that he will tell you how you will know that somebody is dying or not because of how
where he's standing at either the head of the bed or the foot of the bed.
Right. And
yeah,
so
I have heard this story before.
Okay, so anyway, at the end of the story, he's shown he takes the man to this cave of all these candles, and that's what I drew. And somebody looks at this and saying, "Wow, you're really obsessed with death, aren't you?" And I'm going, I drew the name out of a hat this morning.
Yeah, and so they're projecting what they see in that image, not what really is going on with you.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I discussed it because, yeah, Mark, if you're not easily offended and you think that story is offensive, it will make me definitely, maybe I shouldn't put it in there.
I think that there will be people who, there are people who are highly sensitive about it. Now, I'm all for having a story that tells about the pressure that people without kids have to have kids, because it's really high. Ever since World War II, it's been very high. Did you know that prior to World War II, only 1 in 3 couples had kids?
No.
Wow. I did not know that.
It wasn't that big, but no, everyone made this big deal about this thing called the baby boom. Well, the reason why it was called the baby boom was suddenly people were having a lot of kids.
Gotcha. Okay.
But then it became, the baby boom became the norm. And if you weren't pumping out puppies, if you weren't celebrating or, insisting that your family genes came on. And the thing was, so before then, no, if you didn't have kids, it wasn't people weren't going, "Oh, you don't have kids." It was more like, "Oh, okay, you don't have kids."
Yeah.
It wasn't,
No.
It wasn't a defining thing.
Yeah, no, no, it's good to think about it. You're right. And
So
I don't know, things are different. I don't know when I became an old person that offends young people, but it happened.
So when people ask me, "Do you have any kids?" my first response is, "Oh God, no." Just like that, like a very jocular term,
Right.
And just that tone and my attitude just immediately says, "Oh, okay, then talking about Bobby's time at Princeton isn't going to be a big topic for this guy."
I actually don't mind talking about kids with other people, and I really love my niece and nephew. And at one time I wanted to have children, and it just didn't work out for me. And then after being married and divorced twice before I met Tim, and then seeing how happy I am with Tim, I'm very happy it didn't work out for me. But it is weird because people make assumptions about you, and then it's like, oh, well, I have time to do art every day and I go to sleep. And when I sleep, unless my stepson makes a lot of noise while we're in bed, I sleep through the night. Unless I'm having a bad night, I can't sleep. But yeah, no, I think I'm glad I pitched it and we discussed it because, yeah, I got to get the short story collection
Yeah, I mean, it's weird.
Done.
Kind of reminding me of The Lobster, the movie, I mean.
Oh, I still haven't
Yeah.
seen The Lobster.
You're right. I actually wrote that before The Lobster came out, but it's kind of similar. It's like if you don't fall in love, you get punished because you get turned into, what is it, different animals?
Yes.
And then their animal was a lobster. Yeah. Um, so there's, that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, it might just be too intense for people to think about how, being pushed into being punished with, a genetic experiment, that might be too much for them to, they might equate it to other things, which I definitely did not when I was writing it or when I was having a fever dream.
I mean, I've not had a fever dream since childhood. Most of my fever dreams as a kid involved being incorporated into elaborate machinery.
I part of whatever this neurological disorder that I have, it's very common, I guess, that just incredibly vivid dreams, just nonstop. I mean, if I don't dream, if I have a night where I don't have extremely bizarre and vivid dreams, like I actually am concerned something happened. Did I actually sleep that night? Because I have them so often. So when I got sick and had that one, it really wasn't that much of a shock to me.
Yeah.
Well, people, believe it or not, another hour has gone by,
Wow.
much
A
like
little-
a fever dream.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to thank Katie and I want to thank Bill for joining me today. Oh, and I'll have to show you guys next week what I've been working on here. Just coloring away on my tablet. And
Nice.
it was fun talking to you both, and we'll compare our geek culture notes next week. Katie, I think your painting's coming along just fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.